Okay, so the next unit we're going to talk about is going to involve the Pythagorean Theorem. So we're going to kind of introduce that today. The Pythagorean Theorem it describes the relationship between the lengths of the legs and the hypotenuse for any right triangle. Okay, so it's always a right triangle. You need to remember that. In a right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse, so just so you guys can understand, if we have a right triangle, okay, it's a right triangle. In a right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse, so whatever this length is squared, is equal to the sum of the squares of any of the lengths of the legs, which are these. Okay, so this is always your longest side. That's your hypotenuse. And it's always directly across from the right angle. Okay, that's the hypotenuse. And then these other two here, they call those legs. So leg, leg. Okay, so then we end up with this formula, Pythagorean Theorem formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a is the leg, b is the leg, c is the hypotenuse, or the longest side opposite the right angle. Use the x squared button on the calculator to square and to square root your numbers. So remember, in blue above that is the square root. Plug in your lengths for the sides of the triangle. So each time we're going to use this formula, okay? For every single time we solve this, we're going to use that formula. So example 1, write an equation you could use to find the length of the missing side of each right triangle, then find the missing length. So for number 1, we're missing our hypotenuse. So just like we did here, we're going to plug that in. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and we're going to plug in what we know. Okay, so we've got a, b, and c. B for base, c is always the hypotenuse, and a is your other leg. Okay, then we're going to plug those in. 24 squared plus 32 squared equals c squared. So in your calculator, we get 576 plus 1024. So 1600 equals c squared. So we're not done. We're trying to figure out the length of c. So we know what c squared is, so we want to find out what just c is. And so that's when you take the square root and you get your answer. So c is 40. Does that make sense? So when you get to the last step, if you forget to take the square root, just think about common sense. If you have one length that's 24, one that's 32, does it make sense for the third side to be 1600? No. Same thing on number 2. We've got A, B, and C. So it looks like we're missing one of the legs. We're missing B. So plug all that in. Write your formula down. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And plug in the numbers that you know. So 15 squared for A plus b squared, we don't know, equals 20 squared. Then solve. 225 plus b squared equals 400. And then you're going to solve like you would solve an equation. If we've got 225 plus b squared equals 400, how would you solve it? It's a one-step equation. You would subtract 225 from each side. So b squared is 175, and then are you done? No, there's one more step. B equals the square root of 175, which is 13.2. So those are worked out for you, so you can go back and look at those. Let's look at these exercises down here at the bottom. So number 1, we've got A, B, and C. So I'm going to write that formula down. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a was 4, so 4 squared plus b was 5 squared equals c squared. We don't know. So 4 squared is 16 plus 5 times 5, or 5 squared is 25. So add those together. 25 plus 16 equals 41. And so we got to find the square root of 41, and that's going to be 6.403. I'm just going to write 6.4. okay? One thing you can do, kind of a shortcut, is in your calculator. If you think you're going to forget this last step, you could do square root of 4 squared plus 5 squared. You could kind of do it all at once, but I wouldn't do that until you feel more comfortable. Then number 2, we've got A, B is the bottom, and C is your hypotenuse. So same thing, same formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So my A is 5 squared plus 9 squared equals C squared. So 5 squared plus 9 squared, 5 times 5 is 25, it's 81. So if we do that in the calculator, 81 plus 25, square root of it, 107, about 10.3. And number 3, we've got same thing. Your longest side, your diagonal side is your C. Base is the bottom, and A over here on the right side. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. If we're missing one of the legs, just remember, if you're missing one of those legs, you're going to be subtracting, okay? So really, you're going to be saying C squared minus whatever you know. So we know B minus B squared equals A squared, okay? Because you're going to be subtracting, just like we did up here. We had to subtract, remember? So you can make a shortcut for yourself and do it like this. So 25 squared minus the leg that you know, 15 squared equals what we don't know. So 25 squared is 625. 15 squared is 225. So 625 minus 225, we get 400. Am I done? No, I have to square this 400. So the square root of 400 is 20. So that's our missing side, 20. Okay, down here at the bottom, they don't give us a picture, so we can draw our own. They give us A, they give us B, but we don't know C. Okay, so A is 7, B is 12, C is the hypotenuse. That's what we don't know. So since they gave us A and B, we're just going to be adding those together. So we're going to use the original formula. So 7 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. And if you want to, you can plug this in the calculator all together. I've been breaking it down, but you don't have to do that. 7 squared plus 12 squared is 193. Okay, am I done? Nope. I have one more step. Square root of that. And that's 13.9. Okay. Number 5, they give us A and they give us C. So if I drew the picture, I've got A is 10, C, my longest side, is 25, B, the base, add an O. So if they give us A and they give us C, are we going to be adding or are we going to be subtracting? We're going to be subtracting. So we can say C squared minus, what do we know? A squared equals B squared. Okay, so plug it in. C squared, 25 squared, minus A squared equals B squared, whatever that is. So 25 squared is 625 minus 10 squared, which is 100, equals B squared. So 625 minus 100, 525. Okay, and that's that side length squared. So am I done? No, I've got to take the square root of that. So square root of 525. And it's going to be 22.9, or we could probably say 23. Last one, number 6. They give us B and they give us C. So if they give us C, the hypotenuse and one of the legs, what does that mean? We don't know A. Means we're going to be subtracting, okay? So I'm going to do the shortcut. I'm going to say C squared minus the leg I know, B squared equals A squared. So 20 squared minus 14 squared equals A squared. And I'm going to plug this whole thing in the calculator. So 20 squared minus 14 squared is 204 equals A squared. And then, am I done? Nope, I have one more step. I have to take the square root of that because I just want the length of A. So the square root of 204 is 14.3. You can still, if it helps you, if you want to use A squared plus B squared equals C squared every time, you can do that. That is not a big deal. I'm just showing you this as a shortcut. Okay, because you're going to end up subtracting anyway. But if you did it this way, that's totally fine. A squared plus 14 squared equals 20 squared. Okay, that's totally fine if you do that. 400, 14 squared, 196. Okay, and see what I mean? You're going to have to subtract. You're going to have to solve like you would solve an equation. 204. And same thing. Okay, you're going to get the same answer. The subtraction is just a shortcut. Okay?